California has a trash problem. It was created accidentally, but make no mistake, it's a self-inflicted problem manufactured by state leaders themselves. And it has everything to do with this image. Do you see what's wrong with it? California actually has a lot of garbage problems. It cost San Francisco $20,000 to build a garbage can. Oakland streets are covered in trash. Los Angeles County landfills keep lighting on fire. And the entire state has been caught sending hazardous waste to states with weaker environmental laws. But all those stories have been covered. This trash problem is psychological. It was created by a very well-intentioned but sadly very ineffective government who saw an opportunity to take advantage of an environmental crisis. Now, I'm no journalist, but I am an environmental engineer that's been living in the Bay Area for a while now. I do have some environmentalist tendencies. Of the many things that struck me as different when I moved here, nothing made me facepalm harder than these trash cans. This is the story of how good intentions caused a problem that never needed to exist in the first place. Walk up to almost any public trash can in the city of San Francisco or most of California and you'll see not one, but three choices: recycling, compost, and landfill. Not trash, not garbage, landfill. But maybe that makes sense. Anything you put into a garbage can is going to a landfill, right? Actually, yes, that is right, but the first part is wrong. Like, yes, garbage does go to a landfill, but it's the first part that's a real issue. Labeling a trash can landfill is a huge issue psychologically. To understand why this is an issue, let's follow the journey of something you might put in one of these cans if you live in San Francisco or if you just visit the city. Again, I am definitely not a journalist, so if I get anything wrong, just let me know in the comments down below. But I'll only respond if you're nice about it. I just had lunch, now I've got some trash. Let's see if we can figure out what to do with it. An aluminum can, I think this one is pretty straightforward. That should go in the recyclables. Potato chip bag, I think that one's pretty easy too. Landfill. This is a Pringles can. I'm not really sure what to do with this, but it feels like a recyclable to me. This is a plastic food container. Plastic is recyclable. And then I've got this pizza box. That should probably be recyclable too. And here's a used napkin. Paper should be recyclable. All right, I guess that really wasn't that hard, but maybe I made some mistakes. If you caught them, let me know in the comments. We will revisit this later. Next, the folks at Recology will stop by and pick up all of this stuff. They handle this for the entire city, and it is a big business. They're a trash collecting monopoly that's been handling San Francisco's waste for almost a century. They were also part of a corruption scandal where they admitted to overcharging San Francisco residents by almost $100 million. But that's another trash story. All of that recycling, compost, and landfill goes to the same place over here on the south edge of the city. It's right next to the airport and the freeway. These facilities are massive, but they're on private property. Anything you put into the landfill can goes to a landfill. And if an apple core or an aluminum can finds its way in there, that's fine. It goes to a landfill too. There's no harm done. After all, landfill is basically just a hole in the ground. But that is not the case with compost or recycling. If you're not familiar, compost is simply taking organic matter like food waste or garden clippings and letting that decompose. This creates soil that farmers can use to fertilize their fields. Compost has to be filtered to make sure that there isn't anything in it that can't decompose. Otherwise, we might be putting trash into a farmer's field after the composting process is complete. And trash is bad. Quick intermission. I understand the point that maybe we should label a trash can with landfill. We talked about it. That is where the trash goes, to a landfill. But one issue with that, and it's not even the biggest issue, though we will cover that soon, is that it implies that anything you put in the compost container will be composted, and that anything you put in the recycling container will be recycled. And that's just not the case. We'll talk about why that is later. Throwing a bit of trash into compost is bad, but throwing trash into recycling is even worse. San Francisco uses single-stream recycling, and if all of your recyclables go into the same container, you do too. Single-stream recycling is great because you can just throw everything into the same container, but then it has to get sorted. And the machines that do that are expensive. They break all the time, and they don't even work that well. But they are getting better and better every year. Plus, mixing recyclables can cause things like paper and cardboard that would have been recycled to get wet and dirty from stuff left behind in plastic containers. And when that happens, it all just gets thrown into the landfill. Even worse, when someone puts trash into the recyclables container, it's like a virus that infects those recyclables and makes them trash too. That's a plane. I don't want to get too deep into recycling. It could be its own video, but here's some other stuff you should know. Recycling was made popular by the plastics industry. When plastics production took off in the 70s, it was just natural that plastic waste started showing up all over the place. And that was a public perception issue for the plastics industry. Their solution? Recycling. There's some pretty good evidence to show that the resin identification number that you see on the bottom of most plastics was intentionally designed to look like the recycling symbol, to confuse the public into thinking that anything could be recycled. That number just tells you what kind of plastic it's made out of. And while some materials like aluminum and glass can be pretty effectively recycled back into aluminum and glass, most plastics just can't. But if the public is putting their waste plastics into a recycling bin, they probably assume that it's being put to good use somewhere down the line. Plastics that make it through Ecology's transfer station find their way down here to Pier 96 for more of that single stream sorting and packaging. After that, they're typically sent out on ships to somewhere in Southeast Asia, because recycling is dirty business. And we definitely don't want to be doing any of that here, especially plastics recycling. And this is where you might have your first shot at putting together all the puzzle pieces in the story of why this landfill label makes me so upset. It is misleading, but it's certainly not the full story. And it isn't even the psychological problem I promised you earlier. So let's continue. In 2002, San Francisco set a goal to divert 100% of waste from landfills. Their deadline, 2020. So obviously that didn't work out. The deadline was always ambitious, but that certainly didn't stop the city from trying. In an attempt to hit their goal, the city did some pretty wild things. One of these was shame their residents. To get residents to think twice before throwing an aluminum can or some recyclable in the trash, they labeled all the trash cans landfill. And it worked. Many tons of recyclables and compost are diverted from landfills every single year. But it worked too well. No one wants to add stuff to landfills because we've all been taught that they're bad. We all want to feel good about ourselves. So maybe if we throw some trash in with the recyclables and compost, the good folks down at the transfer station can find a use for it. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way, and doing that makes the whole situation way worse. But don't take my word for it. Have a look for yourself. Really, next time you spot a set of these trash cans, take a peek inside and see what you find. Let's do it together. All of this should be trash. All of this could be in the compost. The landfill trend has caught on throughout the state of California. Frankly, I don't know if this problem exists in other states or even worldwide. As far as I know, this trend was started in a completely different state. But I certainly see a lot of these here on the West Coast. San Francisco may have gotten this one wrong, but at least the entire state of California has been saved from plastic straws. Let's revisit my mistakes from lunch earlier and see how I did. Potato chip bag. This is definitely trash. That one was correct. Aluminum can. Also correct. The rest are wrong. This Pringles can is made of paper, metal, and plastic, and there's nothing anyone can really do with that. This is trash. This plastic container has food residue left over on the inside of it. It's got tape on the outside. There's nothing that anyone can do to recycle this. Even if it didn't have this tape or this food inside of it, this would be trash. I said this pizza box would be recyclable, and it is, but you've got to be careful with pizza boxes. This one has this paper on the inside that keeps it from getting stained, but if you've got a greasy box, that cannot be recycled. Typically, you're better off putting these in the compost anyway, as long as your city or town allows it. And this napkin. There's nothing anyone can do to turn this into paper again. It is wet, stained, and has food all over it. This is compost. So now you know. I'm going to tell you what you can do as an individual to help out in just a second. But first, another reminder. I am not a journalist. So if you have anything to add, we'd all appreciate it if you just threw some of your info in the comments. Sincerely. To me, this does feel like a pretty clear case of a state that wants to look good more than they actually want to do good. Labeling trash cans landfill makes people with really good intentions put their trash into recycling and compost containers. And this ends up creating more trash than if they had just labeled the trash cans trash. What can you do about this problem? Number 1, make sure you put anything that was once alive into the compost. Check your local guidelines, but in San Francisco, this includes a lot. Paper, dirty pizza boxes, even animal products, all go in the compost. Number 2, don't put trash into the recycling. I know you want to, but it ends up doing more harm than good. Plus, the good folks down at Ecology will thank you for it. And number 3, if you're the curious type like me, watch this video to see what it's like to ride in a fully driverless taxi. Then hit subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks for watching.